I came across something very interesting. I really love Tim Ferriss, and he had an interview with Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, and he mentioned several things that I'm really interested in, actually. So um, let us just listen to what he says. It's basically about this making everything political, right? So even in the workplace, we can't be neutral like this and not have a stance on certain topics. We get dragged into everything, and I think he described this really well. So yeah.
College campuses. I'd sort of loosely read a few things here and there about this, but I never really took it that seriously. I figured this was just, there's always been activism on college campuses, whatever. We're trying to build something in our company. I didn't pay much attention to it. But what happened was we started to get basically more activism inside the company. Whereas like initially I was always thinking, hey, we're on the same team. We've got competitors, we've got regulators, we're trying to create all this change. We're all on the same team.
And I definitely think that this will be more and more over the next few years. I think that this activism and this sense of maybe you don't have to call it activism, but staying on your principles, having your values, and defending them or voicing them even louder is something that is becoming very normal. And I think that it also has a place at work, but it's getting difficult for every company, in my opinion, and they're pretty big, right? So Coinbase is a very prominent company, but I think that even smaller companies, middle-sized and small companies, will have to deal with the whole spectrum of political problems and issues more or less in the next years.
Internally, people started to think, actually, we're not all on the same team. My job is not to help the Coinbase mission. It's to hold, speak truth to power, or to hold this other team, to account, or something like that. And so it manifested in strange ways, like at the town hall meetings that we'd have every 2 weeks, we'd have an open mic Q&A. And more of the questions started to be about things not really related to what we were building as a company, but to about broader societal issues. And it almost became this like thing where who can make the exec team squirm the most on stage, and with these very difficult questions. And of course,
which is maybe not ideal, but I get the point. So I know that some people really like to do that, but yeah. So feel bad for the management team.
I didn't have great answers to many of the biggest, broader societal issues. We were trying to all focus on building a more economic freedom in the world. So as I was noticing this was happening, this was around the time of the George Floyd riots and everything like that, and the murder there. And so there was a moment, I think, where somebody in one of the all hands kind of came up and said, hey, is Coinbase going to publicly support Black Lives Matter? And
yeah, and he keeps on telling us the whole story, but you can watch the interview, right? So his point was this activism is getting into their company, right? So he had to make a decision that
increasing economic freedom in the world.
Maybe we can find it.
And I was in that latter camp, and I felt like that's already a big enough thing to focus on.
Yeah. So
and I was reading books, talking to people at this time. I eventually settled on this language around mission first.
And
I remember,
yeah, because he decides on where to go, right? So do we want to be a company with a culture that is maybe divided because you have political parties and different opinions on very emotional matters, or do you want a mission-based company where it's not something that needs to be discussed that much? So it's not to say that what is right and wrong, right? But what I feel like is that this is getting more and more, and every company needs to deal with this somehow. So to answer the question, do we want to be political? Do we want to have a stance on a bunch of different issues? It could be Ukraine Russia war. It could be on LGBTQ. It could be on whatever is now trending. Do we need as a company to have a stance on that, or is it more diverse? I think that companies need to deal with that, and the people at the company need to be involved in this discussion to a certain degree, because otherwise I think that like he told us his story, it's it will be something that maybe divides people more than just that glues them together. So yeah, very interesting.